want to find the best horror book recommendations for me, so I've been scouring the internet, trying out different places that have recommendations. This is episode 6 of 10, and we will be trying out recs from Kindle Unlimited. If you want to see the recommendations and my thoughts on BookTube, Bookstagram, Libro.fm, Pango Books, and Goodreads, there's a playlist linked in the description for you. All of those places are going to be ranked at the end of the video, including this one, so if you don't want spoiled, make sure you check those out first. Out of the 3 books, 1 can be from an author I've read from and liked, 1 has to be by a new to me author, and the 3rd one can be another new to me author or an author I have read from and disliked. Kindle Unlimited is a scary place, but also a really great place, so I think there's going to be an interesting selection for me from here. Okay, we need to pick our first book for Kindle Unlimited. So I think for this one, I'm just gonna go into the Kindle store and go to Books for You. Obviously, all of them are not Kindle Unlimited specific, but I feel like a lot will be. And a lot of these are horror books. Okay, Candy Cane Kills, love that. There's some very interesting options. Pen Pal, I love Pen Pal. Okay, This Thing Between Us was also a high rating. So these are some good options, and there's one that I want to read, Maggie's Grave by David Sodergren. I read The Horror earlier this year, and I enjoyed it, but a lot of people have been loving his stuff recently, so I think this will be a really fun one to give a go. I have started Maggie's Grave. If you're curious, these are my Kindle stickers. This one was a Patreon sticker. This was Halloween Readathon, Escape the Readathon, and then Project Hail Mary. Oh no, I just changed pages. Okay, I'm 39% in, which is 99 pages into Maggie's Grave. And we are in a town in Scotland, ? I forget the name of it. It's a very long name. Okay, it is a Scottish town, Auchinmullen, and like nobody lives there. There's 4 teenagers and then like some adults, and there's just like weird things, like each of them live on a street by themselves because everybody else has abandoned the town. Can you get your butt out of my face? Thank you. Yeah, there's 47 residents left. And the only like remotely interesting thing about this town is that there's a grave at the top of the hill where like 200 years ago, 400 years ago, I don't remember, I think it was 16 something, so a long time ago, somebody that was accused of being a witch died. The first chapter of this, I was not expecting that. It was very gruesome. We are in Maggie's perspective as these men show up to her house with pitchforks, and they're like, you're a witch, so we're gonna throw you in the river tied up. And if you sink, then you are innocent, and if you float, you're a witch. So like the innocent people are dying no matter what. There's some very disgusting stuff. She starts to defend herself. That makes them more angry, and we know that she died and she was buried as a witch. So they do take her and they do some very interesting things to her, and then she is buried. We are following these 4 friends, Steve, Alice, what is his name? Grady, and I don't remember. Oh, Beth. And then there's like an outsider that comes in, Courtney, and they all go up to the grave. And that's really where I am right now. So one of them has just had a baby. I think they're all like 19, so they're still very young, and they're bored. And then they're trying to impress this outsider. So far, I'm interested in what's going on. A very cool thing has just happened, like literally in the last chapter that I read. This is my second book by David Sodergren. I read... Oh my god, I forget what it's called. I read it earlier this year. It was the group read for Ashley from Ashley Little Library's 24-hour horror-a-thon that I was co-hosting. I can see the title. It's about the fog, the har. Yeah, and I gave that 3.5 stars. I really, really liked certain aspects of it, but it was just like very clearly a book written by a man, and I just don't always love those vibes. Yeah, I enjoyed aspects of that book, and I wanted to read more from him, so I'm really excited that Maggie's Grave came up for this. I'm very invested in what's going on at this point. There was a little bit of a lull where I was like, I don't need to just sit here and listen to you all talk about how, like, there's nothing to do except for drink in the bowling alley, and you're drinking in the bowling alley. But there's, like, some weird things going on, and I'm very intrigued for what's going to happen. So things are going well. So I am still going in Maggie's grave. I am 68% in, which is chapter 23. And I am liking this. I generally think it's fun, but also it feels a little silly. And it's silly in the way that, like, I feel like the horror itself is silly, but the plot itself isn't. Like, there's a lot of really good discussions in here on, obviously, like, how women were treated because they were, like, said to be witches. Hi, Nova. Because people just, like, had problems with women. And then also just, like, small towns and the secrets that can come with that, and the friendships that you can form with people you grew up with, and kind of feeling like you're moving away from that, but also feeling this, like, pull to them. But the horror itself, like, is laughable. And I felt the same way in the horror. I just have to say that David Sodergren really has a fear of his... I just have to say, David Sodergren really, really has a fear of his penis being taken off. It's happened in both books, okay? I won't tell you specifics. Okay, Winston. Why do you look so offended at me? Can you move? The cats are getting crazy. Yeah, he's scared of that. That is clearly a big fear of his. Ignore the super glue that I have on my nightstand. I just feel like I can never get fully invested in his books because the horror just, like, feels so ridiculous. Like, not even just the whole penis thing. Winston. There's just also just, like, other stuff that's happened, and I'm like, what? That's a choice. It's a choice. Winston is really just, like, oh my gosh. I don't know. I feel like I'm enjoying it, but whenever the, like, stuff that's supposed to be gruesome and disturbing comes up, I'm just like, this is kind of funny because it's so I don't know, not weird, but I do want to see how this story wraps up. Like, are they gonna do the thing, or is that thing gonna be stopped, or, like, what is going down with the whole situation with Maggie and her grave? I don't know if David Sodergren is for me, if this is how his horror, like, the horror specifically, usually goes. But it's been a time reading it. I have finished Maggie's Grave. I don't think that David Sodergren is an author that I'm going to read from in the future. I have read The Horror and I gave it 3.5 stars, but I think that it had a lot of things that I was interested in. I just didn't really love the horror specifically that he did. I think that his characters are done really well. And then in this one, I just feel like it felt silly, but also, like, I wanted to keep reading. So I think it's like, I do like his characters and, like, the setup of the story, but the horror itself feels comical, and it just feels so weird to me with the kind of, like, more intense feelings that are going on with the characters. I do like how this wrapped up with the story itself, and I did like the commentary in this. I think I mentioned with, like, obviously how women were treated and, like, being killed as witches, and then also just how women would be treated in, like, a situation that they were in this, like, second witch hunt kind of thing. That's not exactly what it was. Yeah, I don't know. It just was okay. So 3 stars for Maggie's Grave, which means we are starting out Kindle Unlimited with 30 out of 50 points, which is still a book that I liked, so I'm happy with it. It's one that I was really interested in reading after seeing a lot of people loving David Sodergren this year and reading The Horror earlier in the year. Sometimes I really like silly books, and other times it just, like, feels like it doesn't fit, and I feel like in his books it feels like it doesn't fit as much for me, so I guess that's why it doesn't work. So that's Maggie's Grave, and I'm ready to pick another book. Okay, so we are just looking on Kindle Unlimited again. Okay, so there's For You in Horror Suspense, which isn't all Kindle Unlimited. Ooh, okay, actually, Dollhouse I own, so that's a really exciting one. And I think it sounds really fun, and, well, fun is, maybe not the correct choice in words, but it looks very interesting, so we're gonna go with that one. Did I stay up until 2:30 in the morning reading this last night? I am now 65 pages into Dollhouse. This is one that I owned, but I didn't know a single thing about anything about it before buying it. I'd never heard of it. Honestly, I bought it from Pango to get free shipping from a seller for something else that I wanted. And I was like, it's a horror novella, sure. So I was really excited to see this on Kindle Unlimited. I didn't know that it was on there. And another vlog series I'm working on is reading all the books on my physical TBR by the end of the year. It's maybe not going so well, so I'm glad that I could fit something from my physical TBR on to this. Just a little side note, the next episode of that will be out at the end of this month after all of this is over. So if you want another series to check out, I do have the first 3 episodes out and then the 4th one will be out at the end of this month. I'm very scared for that. So this book is following Olivia and she is about to start college. Well, it's university and this man is, I read books a lot because I almost said this man is set in Canada. He lives in Canada. The author lives in Canada. So I don't know if they say college or university because I think in the UK they just say university. Wow, that was a nice ramble. She is very excited to be on her own for once and kind of experience new things. And she's really, really close with her dad. It has just been her and her dad growing up. And at the beginning, we are seeing them interact with each other. They have a nice relationship. And then he drops her off at college and she decides she's going to take a walk around not the neighborhood, the campus. Am I okay? So that she can kind of get a feel of everything before classes start without like the overwhelming crowds. But she is sadly taken off the street by 2 masked men, the jackal and the gorilla. And she is put in a room that is bigger than her dorm room. It's pink, it has its own bathroom, there's a bed, there's a dresser, but she is a prisoner. Extreme care, I guess, has gone into making this room, and by care I mean so that she can't escape. All of the bolts are melted down so they can't be unscrewed. There's only rounded corners. There's literally nothing sharp in this room, and she is locked in. It's a room made for a doll. She is now part of their collection in their dollhouse. This one is really hard to talk about because I don't want to spoil things. Okay, so we are watching her surviving in this horrific situation. These 2 masked men come in whenever they feel and they do whatever they want. There is a lot of sexual assault in this book. It is not generally specifically described in detail, but you're very aware that it's happening. But only one of them is doing that, and then the other one just like stands and watches, and then whenever she fights back and the gorilla like beats her up and cuts off her toe and like does other things to her, he will like help her clean up and shower and all this stuff afterwards and is like kind. Obviously he's part of her being there and he like will hold her down and stuff for the gorilla to do things. The gorilla is the more physical attacker, and the jackal is trying to take advantage of Stockholm syndrome, honestly. These men are always masked. They always come in together and there's not really any set routine, but it's never, ever a good time. So we are watching all of this awful stuff happen to her. I need to look at some reviews before I give you the next update because I don't want to spoil things, but also I feel like the book technically could end now. I feel like we've gotten enough of like certain things being resolved that it's like mostly wrapped up except for one thing. This book, I was about to fall asleep and then there was the toe cutting situation and then I was wide awake and stayed up till 2:30 in the morning. I was a very slow reader last night because I was tired, but I did read all but like the first 2 pages last night. So I'm very invested in this. I mean, clearly I stayed up way too late reading, but I'm a little nervous about how it's going to continue because I feel like it's not going to have the same sense of urgency and the like stressful nature. Okay, here's the thing. Where I am now, there's been an escape attempt. So there are things that have changed because of that. And I am just like, I don't know if it's going to be as compelling moving forward. But I think because we don't know who these men are, I think that will will make it a little more suspenseful because it could be anybody. So I'm excited to get back to reading this. I mean, the synopsis sounds interesting, but I'm more invested than I thought it was going to be. I'm now 156 pages into Dollhouse, which is like 75% in. I'm going to be honest, I could not stop reading last night. I was like, I just need to read one more chapter. So I forced myself to stop at 75% in. And I found that since I last talked to you, I'm not quite as invested because of like the change that I talked about. It has led to some more repetitive scenes that I'm like, okay, I don't know if I need all of this, but also still it's very page turning. It's just such a compelling book. I do have a complaint. Here is my like big nerd complaint. The one kidnapper mentions this song very frequently. It's like the song he uses to like relax / calm down and like it brings him good memories. It is a classical piece and it's spelt wrong. Will the general public know that? No. Do I have a degree in music? Yeah. But also, it is a classical piece that has a vocal part to it and it starts with the title. So if you're gonna type Ave Maria instead of Ave Maria, don't mention this piece. Like, it is so frustrating because if you Google Ave Maria, it switches it to Ave Maria. It's AVE instead of AVA. And like, truly does it matter to me? Yes, it does. So it's just so frustrating because I think it's been mentioned like 7 times at least. And that's in 150 pages. So like, get it together, John Hunt. I don't appreciate your mistake. Other than that, though, I am liking getting the different perspectives. So we are getting Olivia's perspective and we are getting her dad's perspective. And then we are also getting one of the masked characters' perspectives as well. And I think that having all 3 of those is a good balance because obviously one is the weirdo creep, one is trying to survive everything that has happened to her, and then her dad obviously went through very traumatic things himself, but not in the same way that his daughter did. He's trying to let her do everything she needs to do, but he has suffered a lot and copes with alcohol, and it has gone very far with that. So he's been dealing with that, and she's trying to help him, but also like everybody's putting her needs above his, and it seems like it can be a bit of a struggle sometimes because of that. I don't know how the depiction of that is. I feel like he's coping extremely well, so I don't know, but I am excited to finish this. It's been such a fast read for me. Like, I'm always wanting to flip to the next page. I keep staying up way too late to read it, so I should get back to reading now so that I can go to bed at a decent time tonight. I finished Dollhouse and I had a fun time with this book overall. I do have to say, Ava Maria was brought up 3 more times in the last little bit in like 50 pages. Like, dude, so frustrating. Anyway, that's a thing that will only really frustrate me about this book. Other than that, I did really enjoy the story. I thought it was so compelling. I truly just wanted to turn the page every time I was reading it. I really wanted to know what was happening. I will say that I have some issues with the writing itself. I feel like there were a lot of repetitive things in the sense that something was said and then like 4 sentences later, he would say the same thing, but in a different way. Like, the sentence would be structured differently. And I'm like, I just read that. So that part wasn't my favorite, but it didn't really, like, do anything to take me out of the story other than me being like, maybe that was, like, a little repetitive. This does have a sequel that I will not be reading. I don't care enough to do that personally. And I looked at some reviews on Goodreads, and they don't seem to be the best anyway. It seems like the tension that is in this one doesn't really transfer to the second one, which makes a lot of sense to me. I did like how this wrapped up. I expected it to wrap up in this way, and the final reveal that we got, I think, was fairly obvious, but the way everything was found out worked well for me, and I enjoyed it. I don't know what to rate this though, because I don't get like super sucked into stories like I did with this one, but at the same time, it wasn't a favorite for me. Like, in the moment, I was very compelled to keep reading, but removed from the story, like, I don't have any true feelings about it. So I'm having a crisis. I'm between 4 and 4.5 stars. I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. I think the fact that I was so into the story when I was reading it is the reason that it's 4.5 stars. The story itself, I feel like, is 4 stars, but 4.5 feels right. So we have 45 out of 50 points for Dollhouse, which I feel like is really good for Kindle Unlimited. So I'm happy. So we need to pick the final book, and the one thing we have not done is go to the Kindle Discover thing and then click Kindle Unlimited at the top, Discover, and then add horror as the genre. So for some reason, it's always under literature and fiction, and then you have to add it as a subgenre instead of it just being another thing. We're not going to put any subgenres. Why is United States a subgenre? And British. Interesting. Okay. So we're starting with some fantasy romance? Okay. Lots of fantasy romance. I did click horror, right? What is happening? The Poppy War? Oh, Intercepts is so good. If you have not read that, I recommend that one. I don't know if I can do this list because what is happening? I could read The Exorcist House, but I just don't think I want to do that. Morsels. Oh, Meeting Boyfriend's Family. I don't know about that. I feel like I'm running out of options because all of these are fantasy or fantasy romance books. Oh my gosh, this is getting kind of frustrating. Don't really want to read a bear book. Okay, I've read the horror books that have been brought up. Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. I cannot. Okay, we're gonna, I guess, I don't know what we're doing. I'm gonna find something and I'll come back and tell you how I got there because, like, I can't sit here and look for 10 minutes with you. That's so boring to watch. I'm annoyed with Kindle Unlimited. It's fine. So I am going to pick one that I saw earlier. Really, the cover just is slightly creepy, and that's why I picked it, because they weren't giving me many suggestions to go with that were actually horror books. So I am gonna go with Morsels. I don't know anything about it, but the bendy fork in the shadow, a little bit creepy. And the bottom of this says, afraid to turn lights out long after you're done. So that, and then the cover is why I picked it, I guess. So if this is not good, I blame Kindle. I mean, that's the point of this anyway, but I am kind of frustrated with their system at this point, because the very first one I picked, I also got it in a more general thing, and then I don't even know how that horror suspense thing came up, but other than that, it's just been really, really bad for browsing horror books. I know I was just hating on Kindle Unlimited and their browsing features, which I stand by, and I know I picked a book that I said I didn't want to read when I initially saw it, but I'm having a very good time. I'm 75 pages in, which is to the end of part 1, which is 24%, but this is separated into 3 parts, so I'll just update it at the end of each one. I initially said that I didn't want to read this because it was a girlfriend going to meet his parents for the first time, and that just doesn't sound very exciting to me. But also then I was thinking, oh, what's that book called by Ian Reid? This Thing, no, that's Gus Moreno, This Thing Between Us. I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Those are very different titles. That's a similar setup, but this one's not snowy. So we are following Connie. Is that her name? I remember thinking that was the mom's name, but I was like, no, it's the main character's name. Just because I don't know anyone my age named Connie does not mean that her name cannot be Connie. I'm very rambly today. Connie and Zach. Those might be their names. It also might be Evan. Okay, focus. They are going to meet his parents. He has a very strained relationship with them. They are rich, very detached, never really showed any of them love. So he has a lot of struggles with them. And they invite the family to their summer home in the forest, and for some reason he decides he wants to go and take his girlfriend to introduce her to everybody. And they're talking on the way there, and he's like, I don't think you're prepared, like, they're really awful. And they get there, and his mom opens the door and is like so kind and is like hugging everybody, and he is so taken aback by it. He's like, I truly don't understand. And then things start to get weird, which is one of my favorite things. The mom is just like really creepy. She's making creepy faces when she thinks that people aren't noticing. The dad is just like out in the shed doing things that he doesn't normally do. And I don't know if you've seen this movie because it's like kind of new, but Speak No Evil with James McAvoy, or however you say his last name. It's giving me those vibes of like you're in somebody's house and something obviously is wrong with them, but you can't like quite put your finger on what it is. And this one is a different setup, kind of getting similar vibes to that. So our main character is asked to help in the kitchen, and she cuts herself, and she ends up hearing this weird noise and then going down into the basement. And that's as far as the synopsis goes. So I'm scared for having to talk about the rest of this book too, because the rest of the plot very much is going to be involved with that. But I'm having a really good time with this. So sorry to Kindle Unlimited, but not really. But I am having a good time. Creepy vibes, creepy family members. Honestly, if the rest of the plot completely hinges on this, I might tell you what it is, because there are some reviews that I've seen that do mention this. And I think it could also be a reason for people to not read this book, but also could be a reason for people to be more interested. So I'm going to read the next part. I'm very excited, and I'm so curious about where this is going to go next. I've made it to part 3 in Morsels, and I'm not liking it as much as I was in the first part. My issue is not that it's too long, because I feel like the length of a book has been kind of a running joke in this series, but the issue is that it's too long for what has happened. I'm not like bored of anything that's going on, but the situation has found itself in a very, very small space, and with that, not enough is happening that is of difference, and I think that has made it feel a little slow. So it either needs to be shorter or different things need to be happening, and there are some different things, but I don't know how to explain it. Okay, so this is a creature book. That is what I will tell you about what I was hinting at in the first part. I won't tell you how that comes into play, because I think that is fun to discover in this book. And this book isn't that long, so the somewhat repetitive nature of the second part like truly isn't that big of a deal. I just wish that part 1 would have been longer, and we would have had a little more of like the super creepy, weird vibes leading up to the change that happens for part 2. And then part 2 could have kind of stayed the same with what has happened, but it wouldn't feel as like repetitive and slow. The things that are going on are interesting enough, and there is an element that we really don't know much about, and I want more information on that. So I am still liking this, but I do have complaints with it. And in the first part, I didn't really have any complaints. I thought it was so much fun. So that's how Morsels is going. Still going well, especially for a book that I'd never heard of. I haven't read from this author before. Nobody that I know has talked about this book, but it's just slowly starting to lose my interest a little bit, even though it's still a fun book. Also, I just want to say as vaguely as possible that I think the cover is so interesting, given something that is like a little twist, but also kind of early on we learn, because it's just like, I don't know, I feel like it represents things very well. My other complaint is that there's a character named Evan and a character named Eva. Also, I was right earlier whenever I said it was Connie and Evan, so there's that. And like saying Eva and Evan, like they sound different-ish, but written, they're the same except for one letter or something like that. I don't love that choice. Like it just feels kind of odd, but not a real complaint. So I'm going to finish this up. I'm excited to see where this goes, but I did see a review that leads me to believe that we are not going to get all the answers that some people may want, which I'm truly not surprised about based on how this is going. But I think the way that it's done is going to be a choice to see. So I finished Morsels, and I feel like I'm a little disappointed. So I loved part 1. I was like, this is going to be 5 stars. Part 2 felt kind of repetitive and a little boring. And then part 3, there was more high action stuff going on. It was more interesting, but I just found myself not as invested. I think the exploration of issues within a family and how letting things kind of be swept away can really impact people individually and a family unit. I liked seeing certain characters kind of stand up for themselves, and I liked seeing characters stand up for other characters, and I generally liked the way that it wrapped up and it ended. I don't know, it just like kind of lost me in the middle, and I'm a little sad about it, but I would still recommend it. I will say you don't get much explanation for the creature stuff, which once again, I don't care about. I don't need all the answers for most books. But I did overall like it. I am going to give it 3.5 stars. It probably would have been 3 stars without me liking the first part so much, but I had a really good time with it. So the final points. We started off with the horror, and that was 3 stars and 30 points. Dollhouse was 4.5 stars, so 45 points. And then Morsels was 3.5 stars, so 35 points, which puts us at 110 points. So here is the new ranking. I'm really good at getting ties in here. So in first place, tied, we have BookTube and Bookstagram still. So then in third place, because the first 2 take up technically the first and second spot, but like one isn't over the other. So we have in third place, tied, Goodreads and Kindle Unlimited at 110 points. So then in fifth place, we have Pango Books with 95 points, and then sixth place is Libro FM with 90 points. So that is the ranking 6 episodes in. If you've made it to the end and want to leave me an emoji to say you were here, is there a fork emoji? You can leave me a fork emoji, or like the plate with the silverware, that's fine too. For Morsels. Next up, I'm getting recommendations from the Storygraph, which I personally am really excited to try this feature out. There's a quiz, there's a whole thing, so I'm hoping to get some really good recommendations. Let me know in the comments where you think that is going to rank. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you very soon. Bye.